Quick disclaimer, a lot of details in this video are already known or a little outdated because I edit slow as fuck and the last couple months have been pretty hectic for me. So bear with your boy and take everything with a grain of salt before saying, "Oh, show news, I already know about this, I don't like to be a person to talk about it." Just listen, my point still stands. Anyone that's played any AAA game in like the last 5 years could tell you they've been pretty mid or miss. And this is for a myriad of reasons that I went over a lot in more detail in my last two videos. You can check out right there. But the gist of it is, modern AAA games trade their identity for greed. They have overinflated budgets, no creative direction, and are completely detached from their core audiences for the most part. But I'm not here to hop on my soapbox again or virtue signal obvious things we're all thinking. I want to talk about how these two games could save AAA. Now before you jump down my throat saying, "What? You don't know what you're talking about. How could two games save AAA? I moderate 3 subreddits guys in that twit." Chill out, bruh. Hear me out. And if you don't agree, leave a dislike. Truth be told, Battlefield had always been a bit of an enigma to me when I was growing up. Whether it was because of Call of Duty's simplicity or just a shitty childhood education, I didn't have the brain power to fully grasp the complexity of the game. That didn't stop me from sinking hundreds of hours into Battlefield 3 and 4. I mean, just look how fucking gas these covers are. But did I know what I was doing most of the time? No. Did I like the gunplay, massive lobbies, and destruction?
You're goddamn right.
I say this to say, Battlefield had the ability to draw my dumbass 13-year-old brain. Now over a decade later with 6, they finally come back to that same grounded identity. Free of ego, free of imitation, or forced DEI. The game is almost a complete 180 from 2042. They brought back the class system while also giving players more weapon freedom. They revamped their destruction, immersing you even more into the explosive battles. They even added close quarter game modes like Team Deathmatch and King of the Hill to rival COD, honestly beating a dead horse at this point. I know some people aren't really a fan of the close quarter game modes, but I honestly like it. It's a nice change of pace. If you don't feel like sitting in a game for 45 plus minutes or simply just want to chill and work on your gunplay, it's literally perfect for that. The game has multiple options for different types of players. Now, is it a perfect 10 out of 10 game? No, but I can confidently put it up there with their top 3, maybe even 2. I mean, real shit, the biggest complaint about the game is from RedSec, which is technically its own entity. And it's not even about the gameplay itself, but the challenge progression that they force you to complete to advance even in the base game, which I can admit is pretty idiotic. But what they do, not even a week later, announce they offer challenge rerolls. No deflectment, no ignoring. The few issues the community is reporting are actually being heard and rectified. DICE and EA are actually beating the odds with this W, especially after literally selling out to Middle Eastern shows. Now on to Arc Raiders, one of my most anticipated releases this year, even more so than Battlefield, which was more of a pleasant surprise to be honest. But I've been interested in Arc Raiders ever since watching gameplay from its first tech test earlier this year. From its dystopian, retro futuristic vibe to its scary yet realistically clunky AI robots, I was hooked. And it was only icing on the cake when I found out it was developed by one of my favorite studios, Embark. The Finals is probably amongst my top 5 FPS games of all time. Fight me. In a sea of team-based stability or plain first-person shooters, they blend it all together in their own unique way. And they make things go boom. But back to Arc Raiders. Supposedly taking place 80 years after the events of the Finals, you're what they call raiders, whose job is to fight back against an alien robotic regime called Arcs, who took over the surface. But you also have to watch out for other enemy raiders in the process. Now I'll admit this is my first extraction shooter, so I'm probably not the best judge for the genre, but I pride myself as an expert video game analyst, which really just means I spend way too much time watching YouTube videos and reading Steam and journals reviews. But from the accounts of those more familiar with the genre, they say this is definitely one of the more welcoming and less stressful extraction shooters out there. Now that may sound counterintuitive because the genre is kind of supposed to be just that, high stake and high stress, but they do it in the smartest way possible. They have a much more streamlined and user-friendly UI, so you're spending a lot less time dissecting your inventory and a lot more time killing them dirty all drinking clankers. But the main difference and biggest strength of this game has to be their AI. The arcs are so well done, not just in their design, but how they react to you in the environment. They aren't just a standard follow a set path, must have been the wind AI. Making the game's enemies non-humanoid robots was probably the best decision Embark could have made. Now I won't lie, I got this take from a YouTube video about a week or so ago, but I'm blanking on the guy's name right now. Basically his point was, with humans or even androids, their actions would be a lot more predictable in a sense, because we know how humans are at least supposed to move and act, so when they don't behave like that, well, it looks weird as fuck. But with arcs, They obviously aren't real, so the developers are able to make them as weird and quirky as they want. And when you add great sound design and basic physics, you get the perfect PvE enemy. I really wish I could remember the guy's name because I definitely just butchered his take, but I'll try to find it and link his video in the description. But you get the gist. Now this leads me into my next point about the synergy between players in this game. Arc Raiders honestly plays more like a Helldivers PvE than a PvPvE in my opinion. Like, can you get killed by a couple dickheads camping at an extraction station after you just barely made it in time because they have no life and nothing better to do than project their shitty existence onto others? Yes, but most players are honestly pretty chill if you communicate with them. Even going as far as to trade, team up, or give you some tips. That's why I drew the similarity to Helldivers. That game thrives not just on its gameplay but its community. When players are given common goals or enemies with proximity chat, they unite in the most hilariously fun way. Most people in this game just want to go to the surface, shoot some marks, maybe do a challenge or two, loot and dip. Now I could be wrong, being that I'm still only like 25-35% into this game. Maybe players will become more hostile mid to late game, but based on my encounters so far and what I've seen online, majority of players are pretty friendly. Yeah, I recorded that take about 3 weeks ago. It ain't the same. You're definitely going to get cooked more often. But there's still some good ones out there though. That was just a basic synopsis of the two games, but how exactly can they save AAA gaming? Well, save is a little hyperbolic, but they could definitely be a big step in the right direction. In my last video, I talked about how the growing success of indie games could start a video game revolution, along with the death of major titles like COD. But that take was kinda narrow-minded in hindsight. What I should have said was the success of other titles like a Battlefield 6 or an Arc Raiders will encourage competition, which is always a good thing. Like it literally took the success of Battlefield for COD to listen and implement things that we've been complaining about for years. And as we're seeing in real time, it's probably too little too late. I mean, I expected Black Ops 7 to flop, but god damn, that bitch nosedived 100 feet into a kiddie pool. So far, it's only had a max concurrent player count of 100k on Steam, and that's already tapering off with people already demanding refunds. And before you say, COD players don't use Steam, that's not accurate, that's only 10% of the player base. First, I hope you got free knee pads with your copium shot. Second, if that's true, that still shows an astronomical drop from Black Ops 6 last year, which on release had 300k concurrent players. You also cannot deny the obvious trend downwards for the franchise over the last few years. So even if Steam only accounts for a small percentage, it still has the same COD fanboys. So for every one player lost on Steam, whatever times more is lost on Xbox or PlayStation. But back to my point, how can gaming studios actually compete with these titles, being Arc Raiders and Black Ops 6? I'm gonna rant a little more about COD, then I'm done, I promise. Activision can follow in DICE's footsteps by actually returning to form and recapturing what made them so popular in the first place. Get rid of all the crackhead movement and highlighter see you from across the map skins. Get rid of all the remasters, because if I see another fucking Nuketown shipment, I'm going to explode. Make something new and fresh, but take tactics or ideas from past successes so you're not alienating your OG player base. But biggest of all, a resolve that can circumvent pretty much everything: listen to player feedback. Like I just stated before, it shouldn't take the success of competing titles for you to do your fucking job. Your job is to make good games for consumers to buy. How the fuck can you do that without listening to player feedback? Arc Raiders is a brand new title that's been out for less than a month and already is taking player feedback into consideration. Even after a historically successful launch, which I'll get into in a minute, but as I was recording this video, Arc Raiders released an update fixing multiple issues, most of which are player reported issues, even going as far to lower microtransaction prices, and even refunding the difference to people who already bought the items. Like, I had to do a double take when I seen that shit. For a game that's already well received and financially successful, albeit new, to lower their microtransaction prices on top of already giving you a free battle pass, it's like unheard of. For Embark to basically say, hey, we hear you. Our priority is your gameplay experience, not our wallets. It's fucking crazy. Like, it's like getting out of a long-term toxic relationship and finally meeting a normal person for once, because this should be the standard. But like I said, it might be too little too late for COD. They're supposedly already finishing up their next title, which is crazy being that Black Ops 6 just released, but whatever, that's enough about them. Hopefully other studios, though, can use Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders as blueprints. Arc Raiders more so for new studios or titles looking to break into a seemingly saturated market. Side note, I never really understood why people say extraction shooters are saturated, because it's actually pretty niche and it's just now starting to become more mainstream, sort of like BR pre-COVID. I think the issue though isn't oversaturation of the genre, it's the repetition within it. Most extraction shooters I've seen, which admittedly isn't much, but the ones I have seen all look like Escape from Tarkov with different filters. The problem probably isn't oversaturation, but instead a lack of originality. Arc Raiders is the perfect example of taking a genre and using strengths from its competitors while carving their own identity. And with that formula, they've managed to only continue to grow their player base week after week post-launch, now reaching a max player count of over 480k on Steam alone, only behind giant CS and Dota 2. Oh yeah, I forgot. Just to rage bait the fanboys one last time, Battlefield 6 releases 740k concurrent players to COD's 43k at launch. But back to Arc Raiders, their success is pretty insane for a brand new title that didn't even have a huge marketing campaign with a bunch of influencers and entertainers to promote it. That alone is tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars saved that went to actual gameplay development. And if you still think I'm spewing BS, just listen to what the man who signed Arc Raiders, former Nexon CEO Owen Mahoney, had to say regarding the current direction the AAA industry is heading right now. Let's play a game company tycoon. You're sitting in the CEO seat, you're running a $23 billion company, and you have to make a decision in a very short period of time to greenlight a project. And you know if that new project doesn't do well, you're going to be explaining to your board why you burnt $300 million in company cash. You'll get one of those mistakes with a board company that size. If you do it again, they're going to be calling openly for your head, and by the third time, you'll have an activist investor. Every CEO who runs a public game company is in that exact situation. He then goes on to say, I think that the AAA industry is structurally at its end, and without a serious rewrite of the ways we go about making games, it's going to end in more disaster than it already has. So for any new titles looking to hop into a genre that may seem oversaturated like an extraction shooter, BR, hero shooter, whatever, don't just reskin the most successful titles. It clearly doesn't work. Don't allocate the majority of your budget to marketing, leaving your developers with scraps. Learn from past and current successes and build your own identity in a genre. Give your team time to coordinate with realistic goals and timeframes. And for the love of God, listen to player feedback. With that being said, 2025 has been an incredible year for gaming. Not just because we've gotten banger after banger with both AAA and especially indies, but because of the vindication we've received with a lot of these monoliths being exposed. I still believe the point of my last video to be true. A revolution is coming of some sort because this industry has been shaken to its core this year. But what do I know? I'm just some rando on the internet with 10 subscribers. Peace!